thank you again to Pastor Mick for welcoming us, and John, who introduced us to come here and pave the way for that. So it's our pleasure to be here. So I'm not going to sing. I didn't get any. So Amy is also part of the Melbourne Gospel Choir. I don't know whether you've seen it during the carols by candlelight. So she's part of that group that has been singing different things. So we have, as Brother John said, we've got 4 children. At one point, we had 4 children under the age of 4. You can ask my wife what a challenge that was. And because the last 2 twins, Amy is one of the twins, and the sister is Lydia. She's got 2 children as well. So just to talk about Margaret, we met on the OM ship, the Logos. So I was the doctor, Margaret was the nurse. It sounds very romantic, does it not? I'll tell you that life on OM at that time was not romantic at all. It was just hard work. We had strict social policy. We're not supposed to, interact that way. But God led us at that time. Then Margaret went to India. Then I went to UK to do my post-graduation. It was when Margaret, after a time with OM in India, came to UK that we felt led to be married. And we said we had 4 children at the age of 4. But then God gave us this desire to go back to India to do some ministry. And so we were there. But it was when our children's education, they were studying in a mission school and following the British system. And when the eldest was nearing his university education, we felt that they would not fit into India, and that's why we felt we might have to go back to UK, where Margaret is from UK. She will tell you proudly, she's half Scottish. That's where her pride is, half Scottish and half English. But God, we never dreamt of Australia. Absolutely, it was not in our horizon at all, Australia. But a friend of ours, who had also a psychiatrist, had emigrated to Australia a year before, came to visit us in India as we were considering what to do. And he said, why don't you go back to old England? Australia is much better for the younger generation, for children. And so as he was leaving, I just gave him a handwritten CV. See, psychiatrists are always in great demand. So it came and everything happened very quickly, and that's how we landed up in Australia. So as was mentioned, when I turned 70, I felt that I've done enough, 25 years in public service here. I never did any private practice, completely a public servant. I felt that I wanted to, again, get back into ministry and to try and reduce the whole area of awareness of mental health in the faith communities and to reduce the stigma. People often say, well, stigma is not to the same extent now, in a developed country like Australia. What do you think? Is there stigma? I then throw the example back and said, just after I retired, a year after that, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer. And I would say, I can share that with anybody, in the church, any Christian, please pray for me. But if I'm suffering from anxiety, or I'm suffering from a bipolar affected disorder, would I be as free to share with anyone in the church about it? And so then I asked, why do we make that distinction? There is still a lot of stigma, and we need to reduce that. So that's my passion these days, and that's why I've written these booklets. I'll show you. See that I don't sell them. So this is the first booklet. It's not a book, booklet. A Christian perspective on mental illness and suicide. Suicide, for example, it's become a big issue. Is that right? Yeah. We talk about it during the COVID days. You would have probably heard the helplines were flooded with young people calling the helpline. They couldn't cope with that and saying, "I'm suicidal. I don't want to live. Can't cope." So suicide has become a big issue. But as Christians, what is our perspective about suicide? Have you ever thought? If you ask Christians, you'll find all kinds of answers. Is suicide sin? Is it not a sin? Is it a forgivable sin? Or is it not a forgivable sin? So we have all these ideas. Why is it important to have that? To have a perspective. Because at the end of the day, as Christians, we want to help another person who is going through anxiety, to grief, whatever. We need to have a perspective. Because if you're trying to help someone and we come with the view, suicide is a sin, that person immediately will pick it up. That's your. Whether you think or not, people can pick up this. I mean, as a professional, we are trained so that we don't come, we don't show our emotions and our thoughts when we are dealing. But as a lay person, when you're trying to help another person, it will come across, and immediately they will clamp down. You understand? You're not being shared with it. So that's about mental illness and suicide from a Christian perspective. The second one I'm going to talk a little bit today is about Christian perspective on stress and grief. And the third one, which just came out this year, is older person's mental health and dementia. Dementia is another big topic that's causing a lot of concern. So all is about how we consider that from a Christian point of view. How can we help others? For example, dementia, Christians, or families that are going through that. As Christians, how we can be of help. So that's the thing. So I get it printed in India because it's so cheap to get it printed compared to here, because I don't sell it. It's a ministry and I give it. So I don't have many copies, only a few that I brought. I'll give it to John. But I have got it so they can be widely distributed. I put it now on e-link. So that can be distributed widely. If you're interested, let me know, and I'll send you the link so that you can read those booklets. And I've told Pastor Mick, I am always available to any church or faith community to come and share a bit more about these areas. Always. Right? That's my ministry. The CTP, Center for Theology and Psychology, is part of the Melbourne School of Theology. Okay? Some of you might have seen on Burwood Highway. It's the Melbourne School of Theology. And if you look up the website, you will see things that we do, seminars, workshop under ctp.mst.edu.au. We look up, if you just put Google CTP, it'll come up. And the other thing that I can also share is that one of the things we have developed is, very often Christians, when they're going through mental illness, they want to see Christian psychologists and Christian psychiatrists and Christian counselors. So we have developed a directory which I'm happy to pass on to anybody. If you're looking for a Christian psychologist, Christian counselor, etc., that you want to be referred to or you want to go and see. Yeah? Another thing that I'm doing, or we are doing. All right, so today's message, I'm going to read a passage from the Gospel of St. Matthew. Pastor Mick said, take as much time as you want. So are you happy to stay here till 2 o'clock? Yes. No, I won't take that much of time. As I said, if you're interested, I'll come for, I'm not, on Sundays I gather, but other days, if you want to have a seminar, workshop, happy to do that, but I won't take that much of time. So, Matthew chapter 13, I'm going to read a few verses, passages that are well known to everyone, and that is about the seed. That's Jesus' parable about the seed. It was on the same day that Jesus went out to the house and sat down by the lakeside. Such great crowds collected around him that he went aboard a small boat and sat down while all the people stood on the beach. He told them a great deal in parables and began. There was once a man who went out to sow. In his sowing, some of the seeds fell by the roadside, and the birds swooped down and gobbled them up. Some fell on stony patches where they had very little soil. They sprang up quickly in the shallow soil, but when the sun came up, they were scorched by the heat and withered away because they had no roots. Some seeds fell among thorn bushes. Listen to this. This is what I'm going to talk about. Some seeds fell among thorn bushes, and the thorns grew up and choked the life out of them. But some seed fell on good soil and produced a crop. Some 100 times what had been sown, some 60, and some 30 times. The man who has ears to hear should use them. As they then the disciples approached him and asked, "Why do you talk to us in parables?" I'm not going to go next few verses, but then go on to verse 18. Now listen to the parable of the sower. When a man hears the message of the kingdom and does not grasp it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is like the seed sown by the roadside. The seed sown on the stony patches represents the man who hears the message and eagerly accepts it, but it has not taken root in him and does not last long. The moment trouble or persecution arises through the message, he gives up his faith at once. Listen to this. This is what I'm going to concentrate on. The seed sown among the thorns represents the man who hears the message, and then the worries of this life and the illusions of wealth choke it to death, and so it produces no crop in his life. But the seed sown on good soil is the man who both hears and understands the message. His life shows a good crop 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Next few verses also I'm going to read. Verse 24. Then he put another parable before them. The kingdom of heaven, he said, is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. When the crop came up and ripened, the weeds appeared as well. Then the owner's servants came to him and said, "Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where did all these weeds come from?" "Some blackguard has done this to spite me," he replied. "Do you want us then to go out and pull them up?" Said the servants. "No," he returned. "If you pull up the weeds now, you will also pull the wheat with them. Let them both grow together till the harvest, and at harvest time I shall tell the reapers, collect all the weeds first and tie them up in bundles ready to burn, but collect the wheat and store it in my barn." Father, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts today be acceptable in your sight, O Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thorns and tares. That's the subject of my talk today. Thorns and tares. Now, on reading these two parables, there appears to be a contradiction to what Jesus is teaching the disciples. Do you see the contradiction? Anyone? In the first parable, Jesus is saying that the weeds impact on the fruitfulness. And the implication then is, even though Jesus doesn't say it, the implication is what? If the seed is to grow and be fruitful, what should you do? You should take them out, pull them out. But in the second parable, it appears as though Jesus is teaching the exact opposite. And he says that the weeds should not be pulled out. Let them grow together with the crop till harvest time. Did you see that? Have you seen that? You see it now? Okay. So, we all, I'm sure, have gardens, don't we? personal experience from gardening. When I say to my wife, I'm going to do gardening, yesterday morning, before the sun came out, I went and spent an hour in the garden. You know what I did the whole hour? Weeding. So when we talk about gardening, most of the energy that we spend is on weeding, so that the good things will produce and flower or whatever we are putting there. Pulling out the weeds, as they tend to choke the good plants. And so yesterday when I was reading, I was thinking about today's message for the hour, when I was taking out the weeds. Now, thorns, that's in the first parable, are a special kind of weed, which is very difficult to pull out. It takes so much of energy. I mean, it's amazing. And unfortunately, it needs to be done regularly. Because if weeding is not done regularly, the weeds take over. It is amazing, is it not, how weeds grow with no effort. The plants that we want, we have to feed them, we have to look after them, but the weeds seem to just, with no effort. So after I did the weeding for an hour, then what I did later was to put a weed killer, the places where it doesn't matter, on the path and all that. So much of effort, but they seem to just take over again. Now, in the second parable, if you read, it's called tares, T-A-R-E-S, right? Not thorns, they are tares. Those who, I've not done theology, when I mentioned theology. Tares are weeds called darrel. That's what it's called, darrel, D-A-R-E-L, which is very similar when they're growing in appearance to wheat. They look, when they're growing, can't make out the distinction between whether this is wheat or whether this is darrel. And it's difficult to make out from the other till later, once they are more developed. Then you can make it out. Are you with me? Yeah. So in one parable, Jesus says that the weeds are destructive in the first parable. And if you want to develop fruit, because it impacts on the fruitfulness in our life, leading to a lack of fruit. So the implication is you have to pull it out if you want to be fruitful. Yeah? But in the other parable, Jesus appears to be saying, let the weeds grow. Let the weeds grow, the tares grow, and not pick it up. So what are the lessons for us from these two parables? What are the lessons? The first parable, what did I say they were? Thorns. That's what the Bible says. Thorns are things that are within us. Things within us. What I would label psychological pressures. What does it say there? Worries. Worries of life. Anxieties. Worries about our future. Worries about finance. Worries about our children, about children's education in India, about our children's marriage. Health. And these days, worries about world peace, about climate change, all kinds, isn't it? Things that we are all we are well aware of and often battle with. And Jesus also said worries, and also another word, what does he say? Illusions. Illusions of money, illusions of materialism, illusions of positions in our life. All these impact on our fruitfulness. So what are the things that impact on our fruitfulness? The worries of our life and the going after all these illusions. Isn't that what the world is currently impacted by? You talk to anyone, the worries and what it causes the stress and what they're all out there for, the illusions. All these thorns in our life cause stress in our lives. These are the things that cause stress. Now, let me tell you this. Stress is a normal human reaction. Stress is normal. Okay? We all experience stress. And now, anybody here who does not experience stress, can you put it up? I would like to have a special talk with you afterwards. As a psychiatrist to find out what your secret. Anyone who doesn't have any stress, yeah? Or talk to me later. Stress is a normal human reaction. Remember that. Okay? We all experience stress. And our bodies are designed to cope with stress, to experience stress. Have you all heard, I'm sure all of you have heard these days, what's called the fight and flight response. Have you heard? Yeah? So, a good way I explain this is, have you seen a cat and a dog? The cat faces the dog, what happens to the cat? The hair stand on edge, the pupils dilate, the paws protrude, yeah? And the back arches. Why? The cat is preparing to either fight the dog or to flee from the dog. What is happening in our bodies when we face this fight and flight response is that our body secretes a couple of things. One is corticosteroids are released, which increases the amount of energy that we can have for our muscles to have the fight and flight. From the liver, it reduces the insulin, releases sugar so that we have energy, and then adrenaline, which makes our hearts go fast. When you're stressed, the hearts go faster. That means your more blood is being pumped into. So it's a normal human reaction. Remember that, fight and flight. It is nothing abnormal to have stress in our lives. But the other thing is that we must remember, we are all different in the way we cope with stress. Every human being is different. There's no two individuals the same. The way that God has made us. But, so stress is, what did I say? Stress is normal. Remember that. It's not abnormal to have stress. Stress is normal. But stress becomes a problem when stressors, anything that causes stress is called a stressor. Okay? But when stresses go on and on and on and on, stress becomes a problem. Then what happens? Stress becomes distress. Yeah? And if distress, we don't take care of it, becomes dis-ease. We all use the term disease. You know where this come from? Lack of ease. That is what disease is. Lack of ease is disease. Right? So stress is normal, but if we do not take care of it in a good, healthy way, stress becomes distress, and then distress, if it goes on, becomes disease. And it affects all kinds of problems in our life. Disease of heart problem, diabetes, strokes, everything. We talk about these days in terms of stress causing disease. Okay? So how do we cope with stress? There are many strategies. This booklet gives a number of strategies. We don't have time to go through all the strategies, but I want to share with you the most important and the first one. And what is that? Acknowledge what you are feeling. And most of the problems many of us is when we are going through, oh, I'm a Christian, I should not feel this way, I'm not stressed. We try to suppress it. The first thing that we should do if we want to do something about it and take care of it so it doesn't become distress is acknowledge what we are going through. Have you heard the term in Australia? It is okay not to be okay. Have you heard that term? Yeah. And in Australia we have one day in the year which is called Are You OK Day. Awesome. Are you okay? We have that day. Yeah. So it is okay not to be okay. Why? Because we are human beings. We are not supernatural beings. We are not gods. We are human beings. And we are made with emotions. We are emotional beings. Right? There's no problem in being emotional. Scripture reveals that God is an emotional being. We are made in God's image. Why am I saying that? Because God thinks. Does He not think? So we think. God wills. We make decisions like God does. And God feels. And we feel. Right? So we are emotional beings. So allow yourself time. Allow yourself time to notice and express what you're feeling. We need to do that. And there are many biblical examples. Think about Job. All the stresses that went on in his life. Any one of us going through that will have a breakdown, won't you? What Job went through in the Bible. And the good thing about Job was he did not take the stress and keep it. He's expressed it to God. Did he not? He expressed everything that was happening. And did God condemn him for that? God condemned the 4 friends who came. You know, and I often say that's a good example of when we are trying to help someone who is going through mental problems, emotional problems. It's a saying that I use. You know, we are not professionals. Okay, I'm a professional. Most of us are not professionals. We often, when we go and help somebody, listen to their problem, what is it that immediately comes to my mind? Comes to our mind that we want to solve their problems. We are not solution providers. We are fellow travelers. A key if you want to be a helper. We are not solution providers. We are fellow travelers. You know, my mind, being a psychiatrist, being in positions of responsibility, anybody comes to talk to me, my mind immediately is processing how I can solve that person's problem. To the point that even our children, when they're talking, Amy will tell you how many times she's trying to tell me that I'm trying to solve a problem. Dad, I just want you to listen to me. Yeah? Not solve my problem. Even today she was talking about some of her problems. Not some of the problems, one of the problems she had about losing something. So immediately my mind is trying to find a solution. We are not solution providers, we are fellow travelers. And in the Bible, in Psalm 23, what does it say? Even though you walk through the valley of the shadow, that I will be with you. God doesn't say, I'll solve your problem, I'll be with you. Right? So if we want to be a helper as a Christian with others who are going through, be a fellow traveler. So Job's friends came, and if you remember that story, for the first 4 chapters, they sat with him, went through the grief he was going, put soot over their head, tore their clothes, just sat there with him silently. That's what they should have been doing. But then after that, they began to give solutions, saying, this is why this must have happened to you. This must be the reason why this has happened. And that was a wrong thing. And that's why God at the end said to the 4, you're doing the wrong thing. Job, my son, is not like that. Okay? And God never condemned, even all the things that Job expressed, God never turned around and condemned Job. He expressed his feelings. So that's an example for us. Elijah. Remember Elijah? He was on Mount Carmel against the prophets of Baal. And after that mountaintop experience, he came down to a valley. He went through a valley experience. I don't want to live. I would rather die. And he ran away. And what did God tell me? Another example of what a good psychologist or a good friend should be. God, what did he do? He put him to sleep because he knew he was shattered and tired after that mountaintop experience. Put him to sleep. Woke him up, and then what did he do? He fed him. Put him to sleep again. Woke him up, fed him, knowing that what he needed was sleep and rest and food. Then he took him to a mountainside. And even on the mountain, God did not turn around and say, "What, Elijah, what kind of things are you saying? You're the prophet, the most important prophet in Israel, and you're saying you want to die? There's no point in living?" Is that what a prophet should be? Did God say anything? No. He took him to the mountainside and very calmly he asked questions. That is what a good counselor should be doing. Not providing solution, asking the right questions. God asked Elijah, "Why are you here, Elijah? What is happening?" Allowing Elijah to express what he was going through to God. God never condemned him. And instead, we recommissioned him after that experience to go and anoint a king and to anoint his successor. What a great example, isn't it? What about King David? You know, all the things he expressed in the Psalms, lament. How many Psalms do we have altogether in the book Bible? How many Psalms?
150.
150. And do you know that nearly half of them, 65, are Psalms of lament? Not only by David, other people, expressing their anxiety, their worries, their emotions. Psalms of lament. Nearly half of the Psalms are Psalms of lament. What about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane? Did he keep quiet to God? "I am going through toil." And to the point, his tears were like blood. Jesus himself. What about Paul? The things that he expressed. So many examples in the Bible. So the first principle or strategy to when you're going through stress is what? Acknowledge. Acknowledge what? Until we acknowledge, we cannot find any other solution. Until we acknowledge, I'm going through this. God, I'm going through this, facing these problems. The problem for many of us is when we have difficult emotions, like anger, like sadness, like disgust, like shame, which we often label, have you heard this label? Negative emotions. Have you heard of negative emotions? Mm-hmm. I don't like the term of negative emotions. They are all emotions to me. There's no such thing as positive and negative emotions. They are emotions. We are emotional beings. So, and it is how we deal with our emotions that's important. It's not whether it's positive or negative. You know, you remember in the Garden of Eden, after the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve had two children, Cain and Abel, and both of them offered offerings to God, and Abel's offering was taken more positively by God rather than Cain. And Cain then felt what? Jealousy, anger, and God came to him and said, "Cain, what is this?" He never told Cain, "You've got a negative emotion here." He didn't say that to Cain. But what he did warn Cain is, if you don't take care of your emotions correctly, you're going to sin. And unfortunately, Cain did not realize what he was going through, did not accept. He took him for a walk and murdered his brother. So it is not the emotion that is sinful or potentially sinful, it is the expression that can be sinful. How we express it, how we deal with our emotions, that can then potentially become sinful. Are you with me? Yeah? Okay, now the call to discipleship that we are all called includes experiencing our feelings. We're going to be a disciple of Jesus, experience our feelings, reflect on our feelings, and then thoughtfully respond to our feelings with God's help. Reflect and experience our feelings, reflect on our feelings, and then thoughtfully respond to our feelings. You know, we talked about stress. There's so many things in the world that causes stress. But there's one particular type of stress I want to just share with you called anticipatory stress. What is anticipatory stress? You know, I gave you the example of a cat and a dog. Yeah? So the cat, when it faces the dog, I told you all the things that happen. Because adrenaline and corticosteroids are being thrown, arches, pupil dilate, the paws, or either to fight or to flee. But when the cat is not facing a dog, have you ever seen a cat when it's not facing a dog lying on your couch that way? Just restful. Animals don't do that. Only human beings have stress and what's called anticipatory stress. Oh, what am I going to do with my financial problem? What am I going to do? What are my children's education? And so what are we doing? We are constantly throwing adrenaline and corticosteroids into our body, into our bloodstream, causing high blood pressure. More and more people with diabetes, more and more people with diabetes, strokes, heart attacks. And they are saying these days, one of the new theories is that even Alzheimer's dementia could be due to ongoing stress, which is affecting the brain cells. One of the theories. Okay? So, and that's what's anticipated. Even when there's no reason, only human beings, no other animal does it. Anticipating stress and releasing all these chemicals in our body. Right. TAS. So now let's go on to TAS. So we talked about weeds. So what are TAS? TAS are outside agents, mainly people and relationships that test us. It could be a difficult colleague at work. It could be an unreasonable boss at work. It could be a bullying colleague. It could be an irritating neighbor. It could be a challenging church member. Are there challenging church members here, Pastor? No, all absolutely fine. A challenging church member. Or it could be a nagging wife. I'm sure none of you are. It could be a nagging wife. Or a domineering husband. I'm sure that doesn't happen here either. Yeah? All outside there. So these are the bait of Satan. It is, those who have gone fishing, we throw the bait. We've got a grandson who is very interested in fishing. And poor fella, he's tried so many times. He throws the bait. He's waiting one day to catch a fish. The only time he's got a fish is when we took him. He came to India last year in November, and one of the he was out near the backwaters, and he caught. It was a good thing to him. But here he's been trying so many times. So we put the bait on, and we do all the things right. It's only when we pick up the bait that the fish gets caught, isn't it? The bait can be out there. You can never catch unless you get caught with the bait. The bait of Satan is what? Offense. Is offense. And when we take the bait, we get offended. We have the power not to take the bait. And these people and relationships can. The testing relationships, whether it be work, at home, in the church, can strengthen our faith and life. Can strengthen our faith and life. And what does it say in the parable? You don't take care of it. You don't do that for you. Let me deal with it. It's something that God will deal, not you and me. Okay? But we want to often take care of that person. Right? But God is saying, no, leave it. At the end, in the harvest time, you'll separate the wheat and the tares. Are you with me? Yeah? So when it comes to tares, challenging people like that, don't. That's for God to deal with it. You deal with your anxieties and worries. But that is not your problem. One principle that I have learned late in life, so I've got a number of late life learnings. My wife would have been happy if I had learned all this earlier, and my children, if I learned earlier, she will tell you all the faults. Wives are the best persons to tell you, isn't it? All the faults that you have. So she would tell you that. And one principle that I learned later in life, again I can tell you many, is accept people as they are. Accept people as they are. I'm a psychiatrist. Even I can't change any other human being. We cannot change any human being. Only God can. We accept people and God will do the changing. You can spend all your life trying to change everything, you will fail, let me tell you. Okay? Accept them as they are. Work with them as they are. God will do the changing when you do that. Many of us have been in situations where our emotions prevent us from seeing the big picture and responding appropriately. For example, maybe this doesn't apply here. You have an argument with your wife. I'm sure all of you are so good. No arguments in a marriage. But we do have, isn't it? Yeah. So a good principle when we have, whether it be at home, be at work, whether it be anywhere else, is what I call what we call psychological, there's a term called psychological distancing. It's either cognitive distancing or psychological distancing. What does it mean? I'll give you the definition for that. It's our ability to step back and without an immediate response, survey the environment, reflect on the course of action instead of being dominated by immediate stimulation. Usually what happens, the wife says something, immediately my thing is to react to that. And that makes wife more angry and becomes keeps going round and round. So instead of that, wife says something, take a step back and say, why did she say that? What has brought her to that point? Think about it and then respond. That might be more constructive. That's what's called psychological distancing or cognitive distancing. Another way to put it, more layman's term. Pause before judging. Pause before assuming things. Pause before accusing anybody. Pause whenever you're about to react harshly, and you will avoid doing and saying things that you will later regret. Pause. Just give a few minutes of a pause before doing things. Think and then react or respond. It'll make a lot of difference to relationships and other things in our life. Are you with me? Yeah? And walking, as we all know, is the best exercise. You know, and we are being told wherever you read now, you know, even half an hour of exercise every day makes a great deal of difference, emotionally, physically. You know, many of us Christians unfortunately don't get into that discipline. I wish many more of us do. So we don't have to do much walking. Just say walking is the best exercise. So you can use that principle in this case as well. Walk away from arguments that lead to anger. Walk away from thoughts that steal your happiness. The more you walk away from things that destroy your soul, the happier our life will be. Let me repeat that. Walking is, as I say, walk away from arguments that lead to anger. Walk away from thoughts that steal your happiness. The more you walk away from things that destroy your soul, the happier our life will be. We often feel, you know, if I don't make my point, who is going to do that? I have a responsibility to change this, do this, and we get into headlong problems. Sometimes it's best just to walk away. Yeah? So, just a few principles when we talk about stress and using this example in the Bible, you know, about the difference between weeds and tares. So weeds, it's our responsibility. It's things in our life that's causing stress, distress and disease. We have the responsibility, and we have, with God's help, the tools necessary to do what we need to do. But when it comes to tasks, that's people outside, leave it to God. Accept people as they are, and God will do the change. So I'll leave that with you, and may God grant us much grace, wisdom, and peace to deal with thorns and tasks in our life. God bless you. Pastor, can I pray? Whatever you